Hey, good morning. Good morning, daughter. How are you doing today? Today is the 17th of May, 2019. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And wow, what an amazing whirlwind of my life over the last week or so. Uh, this last week, I went to Tucson, Arizona on a business trip and had a good time. I got to visit with my coworkers and get to know them better. That's always a good time, getting to know getting to know their personalities in more detail, learning what they're like and what their interests are. I'm always fascinated to learn what other people's lives are like. And this trip, I had the opportunity with the people of my coworkers who were traveling with me to get to know them better. In fact, one of my coworkers' sister lives in Tucson, and so we had a chance to hang out a couple nights in Tucson, enjoying their company. That is my coworker's sister's company. And as a group, we went out, uh, and in fact, we went out to dinner on a couple nights. One night we had Mexican food, and it was really good. And of course, I had a burrito. One of my favorite Mexican foods is a burrito. In fact, I had been having a hankering to eat a burrito for a couple weeks, and I just hadn't done it for various reasons. I have the ability to make burritos in my kitchen. I just don't make burritos very often because tortillas can have quite a lot of calories in them, and I just don't. I like to have a lot of big variety of food, and I don't know. Sometimes I just don't make time to or sort of allocate enough calories to have just one big burrito meal, and it's something I want to do more often. The kind of burritos that I like a lot are burritos that have the enchilada sauce or the green sauce poured over them, and they're burritos that you eat with a knife and fork. Yeah, I love the extra spice, um, the extra consideration, sometimes the extra warmth, the heat of the extra chili sauce. It's a good time. So yeah, I really enjoyed burritos this last trip. And in fact, I had a burrito just last night. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So, yeah, we went to Tucson. Not only did we had Mexican food, but on one night we took the trolley. There's a trolley bus that runs on one of the main streets in the university area in Tucson. I believe the university there is the University of Arizona. And we got to get on that trolley. I bought a ticket, and so did my other coworkers. And we got on that bus and, sort of took a look at the town. It's really nice when you can get on some kind of public transportation and just take it because it really familiarizes yourself. You really familiarize yourself with the city. You know, you're basically in a position where you can sit and observe as the streets go by, as the stores go by, and your mind, at least my mind, really does a good job of sort of figuring out where stuff is. It orients itself in space, and I'm reading street signs and I'm noticing the signs of all the shops, and I'm really getting a sense of what the town is like, whether it's kind of a hippy dippy town or whether it's a college town, or you can tell by the stores that are thriving in the area about what kind of sentiments or attitudes or beliefs or behaviors are dominant in that area. And we ran across some really interesting restaurants. There was a restaurant called Elvira. We looked through the glass window of the Elvira restaurant, and we saw their ceiling There are glass teardrops, sculptures that are hanging from the ceiling, illuminated by Edison lights. And it was a sort of a bar-like restaurant setting, dim, and the dominant colors in the color scheme were like a dark blue or magenta or purple. And it was pretty neat. It was definitely a spectacle. They had large bay windows out front, and there were a lot of people sitting in chairs at tables and at the bar of the restaurant, and it was just pretty neat. That was the Elvira restaurant, Elvira. And we had Italian food one night, and I had this really wonderful minestrone. And others in my party had like lasagna and manicotti, things like that. I want to mention that I was able to enjoy some samples of the lasagna and manicotti. Now, you may recognize that a lot of these Italian foods have cheese in them. And I must say that when I'm traveling, I really do struggle to maintain sort of a vegan eating habit. I do try really hard. I mean, I go for the veggie burgers. I try to find fruits like apples and bananas and oranges to eat, but it's just not always feasible. It's sometimes there are not a lot of vegan options. And I must admit that I really do struggle to eat vegan when I'm traveling. Um, Quite often I don't get to choose what restaurants I go to, and despite my best efforts, it's just a challenge. I can't. There's so much sociability. There's so much. When I go out to eat with other people, it's more than just. Um, I guess what I'm saying is that what I tend to do is I tend to make exceptions for dairy. I know that it's not necessarily cohesive with the vegan principles to eat dairy on occasion. Well, maybe it is with some vegan principles to eat dairy on occasion, but to eat dairy, and it does, and I must admit, it does bother me a little bit because at home, when I eat, I do my best not to consume dairy. And hey, I recognize that there are ethical issues at play, right? And I do a very good job steering clear of meat, which is most important, I think, because when it comes to animal welfare, I think, and health, I think that meat is probably something to stay away from because of the saturated fat and cholesterol and some other factors. Dairy is less problematic, but I still think of it as being problematic. Um, it's the easiest one to goof up on. Dairy finds itself in so many foods, like bread. I sometimes inadvertently eat dairy in bread. Sometimes milk is put in breads, and also forms of milk are put in breads, like mono and diglycerides, which I understand often have a dairy source. And it's really hard to stay away from those kind of foods. So I really do struggle, particularly when I'm traveling, staying away from dairy, because let me tell you, restaurants, they love to heap dairy on foods. I mean, and they're always like, if you get a burger, there there are a lot of ways. And when I mean burger, I mean veggie burger, of course. But when you get a burger, a veggie burger, there are a lot of ways that they can sneak dairy onto your veggie burger. Let me count the ways. Okay, they can straight out just ask for cheese. That's fine. Like, do you want to add cheese to your veggie burger? That's easy to say no to. There are other things. There are like sauces, like Thousand Island sauce or whatever, or maybe like a ranch dressing that they might put on your veggie burger, and they may not even recognize it as something to ask whether or not you want to have on your burger, because it's just part of the burger, right? So there's the sauces. And then there are other aspects like bread. They may put butter on the bread when they toast it, right? So they might add dairy to the butter. And then, of course, there's the bread itself, right? If you're getting a veggie burger, how can I really verify that dairy is not used in the bread? It's not easy. What am I going to ask? Am I going to ask, is there dairy in your bread? Did the chefs use eggs to make your bread? Let me tell you, a lot of baked products have dairy or eggs in them. Baked goods typically have some kind of butter or milk in them in some form. And they have eggs in some form, butter, milk, or eggs in some form. In breads, this is very commonplace. These are common ingredients. And even if they don't have those ingredients, then they've got these derivatives like diglycerides, which often come from a dairy source. So it's just a super duper challenge. I mean, a super duper challenge to find fully vegan breads and sauces, even on a veggie burger. So I'm really challenged by it. And I don't think there's a really easy solution. There are other factors at play too. There's social factors. Like, am I going to get all inquisitive about my sandwich when I'm in a group, when I'm amongst friends? It's just not. It's not a conversation that I want to have in front of family, friends, or coworkers. I can do that, get all inquisitorial about my food, but it takes away from the fun of the event. And so it's a real big challenge. And I struggle too about it. I guess the answer that I've been using lately is flexibility. I just have to maintain flexibility. There's just no way around it. And so I'm getting right with this idea of being flexible. At home, it's easy for me to be all inquisitorial about my food and ask a lot of questions. But I just don't have the time or energy sometimes when I'm on travel to figure it all out. And even when you have a large variety of foods available, it's still a struggle. So anyway, I think you're probably well aware of some of the struggles related to these, choosing your ingredients. I'm really thankful to live in a society where it's even possible. There are vegan restaurants. It is possible to do a really good job of cleaning up your diet in that respect. And I'm really thankful that our lives allow for that. If I was a hunter-gatherer and I lived, say, in the forest 100 years ago or 200 years ago, I wouldn't be able to readily take this kind of eating stance. But I can now. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity. It's just not feasible for me to do it all the time in all circumstances. So, thankfully the negative impacts on my diet are not that apparent. I'm able to maintain the things that are most important to me, which is my health, my weight, my blood numbers. That is my blood test numbers. So that's good. So yeah, I had a great time walking up and down the main streets of Tucson, or at least some of the main streets of Tucson. Another thing that we did is we went to an ice cream shop. Yeah. And I had some really good honey ice cream. Yeah. What can I say? It was really good. In fact, I think the honey ice cream was called Honey Bee. Anyway, what can I say? I really did consider getting like a blackberry like gelato or something like that. It was more vegan, but I don't know. Let me tell you, I was struggling. Here's the thing about life. Sometimes you can't meet all of your ethical principles. Sometimes you can't. Um, it's hard to be morally consistent in the world. The fact is, the world is a very complex place, and there are layers of complexity upon layers. There's practical solutions, social solutions that just don't. The thing about life is that it's kind of a mixed bag, you know. I did some good things. For example, I think I got a cup of water at the airport, and there was an option to use a plastic straw with a cup of water, and I said no to the straw. Yeah, I got to take my victories where I can find them, And I said no to the straw, and thankfully I came out victorious in that decision, at least for me. I also want to protect animals at sea. I know that straws have a tendency to get far afield sometimes. They get blown by the wind, or they don't find their rightful place in landfills. And yeah, and I think that animals can have troubles, particularly aquatic life can have troubles with straws. Anyway. So, and it's kind of funny. Here's also another aspect of being human. A big part of being human is eating. I'm not sure, if this is probably a cultural thing. I have a feeling that other cultures don't spend quite as much time on eating as the American culture does. For Americans, eating is a big deal, is a significant part of our day. And here's the thing: human beings over the millennia, they've made an art of eating, through cooking practices and how we share foods with each other. And, it's a big deal. Food is a big deal for human beings. There are television channels, television programs, television personalities, and all they do is work surrounding food. Like one idea I'm having that comes to mind is this diners, drive-ins, and dives on the Food Network. What is his name? Guy Fieri. So this guy, Guy Fieri, he goes to a lot of diners, drive-ins, and dives, and he samples them all over the United States. People watch that show. A lot of people watch that show. They're interested in getting ideas about when they travel to certain places, like cities, what restaurants are good, what local diners, drive-ins, and dives are notable in the area, and they like to sample cuisine of the place, the chefs and the cooks in the area. This is a pastime for a lot of people. Human beings, we love to eat. And thankfully, I'm really grateful that I live in a time and place where food is so abundant. We have huge abundance, particularly as it relates to food right now. And man, that's one of the things that humans love the most. Here's a good example. I've really been enjoying apples lately. I've been having huge hankering for different kinds of apples. And I've really enjoyed going to the grocery store and getting lots of fruit, particularly apples. Like yesterday, I had 2 jazz apples. A jazz apple is a variety of apples that is available in nearly every supermarket. And some of my favorite apples are Granny Smith apples. Those are the green sour apples that are available in most grocery stores. Pretty much most all grocery stores. It's a very famous apple because it gets used in cooking a lot of dishes like apple pies and apple fritters and applesauce. It's a really strong cooking apple. A lot of home chefs use. So so my favorite apples are the Granny Smith apples and I also like the Honey Crisp apples and the Pink Lady apples. And of course, Jazz apples are amazing. So that's a list of the finest 4 apples that I know about. I'm not really loving yellow delicious apples, red delicious apples, not loving Gala apples or Fiji apples. But thankfully in the grocery stores have all sorts of apples. It's really not uncommon for a grocery store to have 3, 4, even 5 varieties of apples available, some in organic and non-organic forms. So we live in a world where there's plenty when it comes to apples. I'm really thankful for. Now, if I understand it, apples are quite seasonal, and they pretty much only grow like in July through November, and that's it. And so the apples, I'm well aware that the apples I'm eating now are apples that have been put in cold storage. And they just, the apples that I'm eating now have arisen. I mean, they were harvested last year, and they really are still in very good shape. Our American farmers, I guess worldwide farmers, have figured out how to manage the apple harvest and get us consumers the kind of apples we want to eat during the year. Now, I mentioned how seasonal apples are, and I'm really looking forward to a brand new apple that'll be available in late 2019. And this apple is a red apple called the Cosmic Crisp apple. And I've been hearing some really good things in the media about the Cosmic Crisp apple, and I'm really looking forward to trying this brand new apple in July. Yeah, I hear it's amazing, maybe one of the best apples ever produced. And I hear that it's going to be an apple that's got a really long shelf life, which is great for farmers. But I also hear that it is something that's going to have a really nice texture and really nice flavor. And I also hear that it's really one of its strengths is its visual appeal. Now, here's the thing: apples are gorgeous. They are beautiful. I love the designs on their skin. I mean, pretty much every apple is beautiful. Even with bruises, apples can be just works of art. It's really amazing just how beautiful an apple is as a fruit. It's really gorgeous. Anyway, I did want to mention that yesterday I had 2 Jazz apples, nice, good sized medium apples. Really fantastic. The nice thing about the Jazz apples is that they've got a really nice mild flavor. It doesn't overpower. Some, say, Pink Lady apples and Honey Crisp apples can overpower with their just powerful apple flavor, which is just, just magnificent, I think would be the only word to describe it. But they can sometimes get a little bit over the top. I've had some over the top Pink Lady apples. Oh man, these are some of the crispiest, most flavorful apples I've ever eaten, and they're just over the top and just crushing it, bringing all their apple goodness to your palate and to your tongue. So, like I mentioned, I am looking forward to the Cosmic Crisp apple. Cosmic Crisp apples are relatives of the Honey Crisp apple, and that's why I think that's why they're so named, to give honor to the Honeycrisp line of apples. So looking forward to that Cosmic Crisp coming in July. So that should be nice. Hopefully this year's a good harvest. One thing that was very apparent down in Tucson was that the rains that we had this winter really helped out a lot of the wildlife. When we were walking around in Tucson at someone's house, we saw outdoors crossing the pavement on sort of on a garage port. We saw these walking quail, a family of quail, and there were a lot of sort of child quails that were following the mother. And when I say a lot, I'm talking about 13 or 14 child quails that were following the mother. So very impressive. There was a very impressive litter that mother quail had, and so pleased to see such large numbers of birds being born and raised. So anyway, I figured what I'd do is I would talk for a moment about the topic for today. And the question is, have I ever been on jury duty, and would I ever like to be on a jury in the future? And so the answer to that question is no. I've actually never been on jury duty. I've gotten close one time, but I ended up being sort of deselected from the group of jurors. And, here's the thing. Would I ever want to be on a jury? I don't have any particular strong desire to do it. I know that there are a lot of people who watch these police programs on television, like NCIS and Cops and Detective Miami, Florida, or wherever. It's not something I watch. Hey, and I totally get it. I get it. You're tracking the good guy. You're booking and putting in jail all the bad guys, and you're looking for evidence, and you're using your logical thinking skills to come up with solutions. Essentially, you're like a Sherlock Holmesian character. And hey, I get it. There's a lot of interest in that, but it's not necessarily a line of thinking that I really enjoy or participate in or really like watching. I think that partly it's that I'm not really very morally judgmental. Not at least maybe I like to say that. I recognize that I might just like saying that. But here's the thing. I kind of recognize that people act in ways and think in ways that they're conditioned to act. And, sometimes people act in ways that sort of, you notice their limited imaginations when it comes to their choices for behavior. Maybe they're less choiceful, or maybe they're more or less willing to sort of act in ways that are not consensual. Hey, I get it. Human beings can sometimes be desperate, and they can walk on other people, and it's something that needs to be addressed, through a justice system. And hey, I get it. It's necessary. It's an important part of society, and it's just not something that really intrigues me. For me, science, philosophy, ideas, I would much rather just be in a conversation, like a book club, some kind of conversation group that talks about these ideas, that sort of figures out right from wrong, good from bad, say, in conversation. That's interesting. I think I'd like that part. Sort of maybe the debate part. of the justice system. But the actual sort of pinning on of judgments and punishments, it's not something that my brain aligns to really strongly. So, no, I guess the answer is no. I don't have a really strong interest in becoming a juror. So I haven't been a juror, and I don't have a really strong interest in becoming a juror. It's just not something that fascinates me that much. I think that, you know, here's the thing when it comes to moral judgment is that I recognize that it's largely subjective. It's really a function of context. And so I don't know. I think I prefer natural consequences as being, but I know, hey, I also recognize that natural consequences are often not enough, particularly in a society that is as complex as ours is. Sometimes, it's really important to have some kind of artificial constraint on people's behavior. And hey, I get it. It's necessary. And, I also recognize that it's imperfect, and I'm also okay with it being imperfect because sometimes you just have to take action in some way, even if the action is imperfect. Make a judgment, even if the judgment is imperfect, because you want to sort of be keen to maintain a set of values. And there are behavioral values in our society, and it's important that people take action to sort of pursue and adhere to those values, which are sort of the ones that we've sort of agreed on as a group that we want to live our lives by. Yeah. So it's definitely, I recognize its necessity, and what can I say? I don't really have a strong desire to be a part of it. And I offer kudos to those who do want to be a part of it. Those are not easy jobs, and I salute them. I honor them and I respect them who, are willing to get their hands dirty and try to solve some of the problems that society is seeing and try to organize them and develop processes that work. Right. Yeah. So those are the answers to the questions. So here's the thing. I am back from my trip to Tucson. I just came back yesterday. At about 12 noon. I arrived in Lompoc, California, after being on a flight early yesterday morning. The flight left the airport at about 8 o'clock a.m. And then it landed in San Luis Obispo, and I had to drive from San Luis back to Lompoc. So, that was my trip. That was the last leg of my trip, and thankfully it's done. One thing that I noticed is I tend to have put on some weight in the last 4 or 5 days that I've been away. I guess it was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It was 5 days that I was away. When I'm away like that, I don't have my weigh scale for weighing food, and I haven't figured out a really good way of counting calories when I'm on travel. Maybe what I'll do is I'll try to use my Fitness Pal to do that. So so maybe I will just load that my Fitness Pal tracker and try to at least get some control over my traveling calories. Because right now I don't have a lot of control over them, and it shows. I'm probably at a good 4 pounds, maybe 5 pounds heavier than, well, yeah, I guess I was 144, and now I'm like 148. So I'm about 4 pounds heavier than when I left about 5 days ago. Now, a lot of that is water weight. Here's the thing: when you eat out, a lot of the time, what you're eating is salt. uh, Restaurant food is highly salted food. I get it. Um, like I said, I'm going to do my best to sort of control my calories while I'm traveling. It's just not an easy thing to do. I'm quite challenged by it. Sometimes I'm eating at food vendors that it takes time and effort to sort of track down the calories in the foods that they prepare for me, and I just haven't figured out how to do that well. Like I mentioned, I'm hopeful that my fitness pal will help me do it. So I'm going to do my best to get back on track as it relates to making sure that my nutrition is sort of lives up to my values. And so I especially want to do that since I'm going to be traveling again next week. That's right. Next Wednesday, I'm going to be on a plane leaving Lompoc and visiting Albuquerque, New Mexico, visiting my family in New Mexico. So looking forward to that. And I want to get my diet back under control. Some semblance of control by the time I leave. And what that means is I also want to get my workouts back under control. Thankfully, I was able to work out pretty much every day that I was away. When I was on that work trip. So I did go swimming and I did go running on the treadmill. But I think there were 1 or 2 days when I didn't do any exercise. Oh, on the day that I arrived, I was able to do back yesterday at the gym. So I was able to exercise my back muscles. So thankful for that. So, one of the things that I tried to do yesterday is try to get back on track, try to get back into my routine, my workout routines, my eating routines. Today, I'm going to put a lot more energy in that. Also, I'm trying to put energy into just fixing up my house, doing the regular chores, getting the dishes done, maybe washing my clothes. I also do have that trip to Albuquerque to start to do planning. And one thing I noticed sort of last minute is that when I did take my iPad Pro to Tucson, but I forgot to bring my iPad Pro, my Apple Pencil. So I couldn't take the notes or do the planning that I was hoping to be able to do. So that's okay. I got some stuff done. Human beings are just struggle to pull stuff together, right? And let me tell you, human beings do an amazing job. The last night that I was in Tucson, that day we traveled on the airlines from Tucson to San Francisco Airport, and from San Francisco Airport to Lompoc. But we ran into some trouble. There were some cancellations related to bad weather in the area. Airports are sort of weaving and sort of trying to manage the weather, because sometimes there are high winds, and that makes flying more hazardous. And so, there are limits on what airports can do when it comes to weather. So it turned out that I guess the night before last, not last night because I slept in my bed last night, but the night before I actually slept overnight at the airport because I couldn't find a room because all the flights were canceled and people were scooping up rooms as fast as they could around the airport. and I was not able to get a hold of one. So I couldn't locate a motel room to spend the night at. So I spent the night in the airport. I want to mention that it wasn't that big of a deal. You know, my body can survive and thrive in a lot of different difficult environments. Unfortunately, airports don't make it easy. Wouldn't it be great if they had like bunk beds that you could rent for, $20? That'd be awesome if they could have like pods. I've seen these pods in Asia where you just maybe spend 20-40 bucks and you get a little pod where you can lie down, right? So that would be nice. I'm looking forward to the day when there are a lot of pods in the United States, like there are in Japan. Just small places for you just to lay down and get a couple hours of shut eye. So I was talking about generally how human beings are really hardcore when it comes to getting things done in adverse environments. I mean, even though the night before I slept in an airport, I completed the last leg of my trip, and I cleaned the house a little bit, organized a little bit. I did go to work, and I also went to the gym. So I really tried to get back into my schedule as soon as possible. 5 days on travel is not easy to do. And I sort of get out of my habits. I'm definitely a person of habit, and I really love my routines that I've developed over the years. And when travel throws me out of those habits, I want to get back into those habits as soon as possible. And I saw that that was true for my coworkers too. I'm really blown away about how committed and determined they are in their work. Sure, I made it to work at the end of a challenging trip, and I also got to the gym. I was hearing stories about how my other coworkers were doing the same. So, real pleased. It's really great to be in the company of people who are really trying their best, and are expending their energies in sort of responsible, wise, intelligent ways, and are just hard workers. I like being around people like that are just so committed to doing a good job. I really respect and honor just how intelligent my coworkers are, and just how determined and committed they are to being the professionals that they are. It's really amazing to see. Of course, I see it every day, and I guess I just become accustomed to that. But you know what? It's a real challenge to deal with the subject matter that we deal with, and the challenges of our work field and industry, and to make the decisions that we make. And it's I think I take for granted the sort of the professionalism and dignity and efforts that other people put forth. But they're doing it every day, man. They're crushing it every day. So great to be in a group of people who are really doing their best. I admire that. I admire what they're doing. So I'm really sort of extolling the virtues of my coworkers and how courageous and hardworking they are. And I'm just glad to be a part of that group. Here's the thing: human living on the planet is a challenge. There are a lot of problems that people can be stricken with, like diseases or injuries. There are financial considerations, logistical considerations, our families, and how we interact with our families in the world. Life isn't easy. There are slings and arrows, related to media, and there are just a lot of challenges, and it's not easy to go to work every day, right? And But we pretty much all do as human beings. There is a kind of work that we do, and we're offering value to our employers and to our society as a whole. And human beings, we're getting it done. We're building roads, we're building boats, we're building cars, we're building the technology of the future. Programmers are arriving at work right now, and they are programming in JavaScript the next generation of artificial intelligence. you know, it's really amazing what human beings are doing. All the nurses are arriving at hospitals this morning, taking care of patients who, just had surgery, or people who have fallen sick for unknown reasons. And human beings are awesome. And a lot of us too are on vacation, right? And we're doing so in a way that's responsible and helpful. And I don't know, human beings are amazing. Even pilots who pilot aircraft, I admire the work that they do, really putting their lives in jeopardy every day as they travel from point A to point B, providing the transportation services to people who want to go places. It's amazing. Right now, there are doctors who are prepping before they're seeing their first patients of the day. Some of them, I'm sure, have already seen patients or are seeing patients, doing their best to solve health problems. Being human is pretty awesome. How we each sort of make a contribution to our society in the best way that we can, Anyway, I'm really looking forward to this weekend. Today's a Friday. And I'm going to try to do as much planning for my trip to Albuquerque as I can this weekend. It's pretty neat to get another vacation. And the fact is, I actually don't take a lot of vacations. I just don't. I don't take a lot of multi-day vacations. That is, vacations that last longer than a weekend. I basically have 2 planned vacations a year. And I don't know if they are vacations. For example, one of the vacations I go to is I visit my family every year. I go to New Mexico, usually during the summertime. And the reason I go during the summertime is because the winters can kind of be brutal in places like Taos and Santa Fe, with the snow that falls and the icy roads and the weather in November and December. I'm a summer guy. I like the sun. I like when it's warm outside. I like when the snow is melting and the streams are high, and the wildlife are happy because of the rains and the snow that we've had over the winter time. So give me spring any day. So visiting New Mexico is typically one of my vacations. Another vacation I go to is a camping vacation in the mountains near Santa Cruz. And this year I'm going for 2 weeks. I'm going to go camping for 2 weeks. Definitely looking forward to that. So those are my 2 vacations that I plan every year. I go to New Mexico and I go to the mountains to go camping around Santa Cruz, California. And that's fine. That's enough vacationing. What's kind of interesting about the vacations that I choose is that of primary importance is me relating to other people, my family or friends. That's the reason I take vacations. For me, vacations are not I mean, hey, I like exploring new areas like anyone else and learning about new cultures, but for me, the most enjoyable vacations are vacations that happen with other people. And it's sort of like an intentional, any kind of intentional gathering of people. Um, that's something that I like. Yeah, for me, it's about relationships and the bonds that I build. It's about the conversations I have with others. It's about, it's less about doing things I've never done before. It's, or if it is about that, it's about doing those things with people who I love. You know, so I'm not one necessarily to go on vacations to say Iceland or France or Italy or Indonesia or Asia. For me, it's really about the people that I spend time with. You know, I've been thinking about possibly going on this like dancing vacation where people just do ecstatic dance for days and days. I don't know if I could physically do that kind of stuff. Do like 7 days in a row of dancing every day. Although it's a possibility, I suppose. Um, it might be something I want to look into. I do have friends that go on these vacations that are tend to be somewhat athletic. Like I've got a friend, he goes on these vacations where he's bicycling a lot, right? They're bicycling 50 miles a day, right? And they bicycle like across Alberta, Canada, right? And and then I have other friends who are like into hiking, and they will hike for, maybe 5 miles a day for 10 days or something like that in South America. You know, that might be something to try out, sort of like these adventure vacations. I think, and there's also another vacation that, oh, it escapes me now, but, um, oh, camping vacations. Oh, here we go. Whitewater rafting vacations. I had a friend that went on a whitewater rafting vacation where they whitewater rafted for like 4 days down the Colorado River in the Grand Canyon. Those are pretty amazing vacations. And I don't know. I wonder if those are for me. I might want to give them a try, I suppose. I recognize I've got a lot to learn when it comes to going on vacations and making the most of my time. I want to become more of a planner. I think that I can pull together my life a little better if I just spend a little bit more planning on what to do next, like what tomorrow's going to be like, and what my, focus on planning arrangements with friends. I just need to do a better job at all that. Maybe what I could do is use the X effect methodology. Essentially, what you do, the X effect, is about marking in an X in the calendar for each consecutive day that you do something. And maybe I could mark an X for every day that I do some planning, just even a little bit of planning about the future. That might be a good thing to do. Yeah. Sometimes you just need to put hours into planning. Here's the thing. I'm often quite busy when I've got night school every night or a couple nights of the week, and then I've got work every day. Sometimes I struggle to find time to plan. And, I recognize that, sometimes my vacations or time away or time with people is not maximized. I recognize that sometimes the quality of my life is not as good as it could be if I spent more time planning and coming up with ideas and trying to implement them. That's why, really. I'm seeking to raise the quality of my life through doing more planning. And maybe what I could do is if I could take the time that I already spend on, say, social media or on my computer and use that time to plan instead of just goofing around on social media. That would probably be a better choice. Because, for me, in my mind, a lot of planning happens while like sitting down at a computer, or sitting down looking at my smartphone. I make updates and put ideas into Google Calendar or to Google Keep. In fact, increasing sort of the synergy between those two programs, Google Keep and Google Calendar, could be really helpful because one is Google Keep is like this great brainstorming software, and Google Calendar is this great calendaring software. And right there, that's the crux of planning, where those two things meet, right? So the brainstorming part meets with the calendar definition part. Yeah, so thankful to live in a world where software has been developed that sort of enables this my ability to plan a better life. Really lucky. So Emily, thank you for clicking on that link and spending some time with me today. I really appreciate this time where you allow me to just sort of describe what's going on for me, and I hope things are going well for you. I have a feeling that you're wrapping stuff up. Maybe when it comes to your track and field, you are now sort of going to dinners and awards ceremonies and things like that sort of commemorate the past year and your performance on the track and field team. And perhaps you're getting awards and medals and recognition for your efforts on the team and on the field. And I just want to provide my congratulations to you too. One thing that I wish I knew more was about what sports that you play in track and field. I'd like to know if, I don't know, or do you do shot put or the high jump? I'm really not sure what games. Maybe are you into hurdles, or are you more of a long distance runner? Not quite sure what that's what your focus is, and I'd like to get to know what your focus is. Just because I'm kind of interested in what you're interested in, what you're passionate about. And I saw that you got my gifts. I sent you a gift of a Cabrillo High School gym bag, and I also sent you a scarf in Cabrillo High School colors, which is black and gold. In fact, I got to thinking about how maybe I would like to have a scarf like that with the Cabrillo colors, because it was a really pretty scarf. And I hope you get a lot of, find a lot of opportunities to wear that scarf to the sporting events that you go to, when it might be cold outside, like if you're going to a football game or to a volleyball game or something, or maybe a basketball game. Sometimes those gymnasiums can be rather cool. Anyway, I hope you enjoy your gifts. And I'm very cognizant of your birthday coming up soon in June, June 21st. That's when you're going to turn, I can't believe it, 15 years old. Holy cow. You were a young adult already, which is amazing. I'm super proud of the progress that you're making. And I hope you're finding that you're enjoying your schooling and that your classes are going well. I know final exams are probably happening very soon if they're not happening right now, as your teachers prepare you for the examinations at the end of the year. So I hope you're finding enjoyment in doing your studying and in your classes, and you're doing well in your exams. Anyway, maybe one of these days we can catch up, and maybe I can learn a little bit about what you're liking or not liking as it relates to your examinations. Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up. I hope you have a wonderful day today, this Friday in May, the latter part of the month. And I guess I'll talk to you later. I love you, girl. Bye-bye.